I just stop using it. It's
Wanna
one of
pause it?
like,
Yeah.
it's out of it. I'm tired of stand.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, we don't move up to the front of the room.
Okay. And hey, guys that are on Zoom, I wrote out a little thing, or typed up a little thing, but, you don't have it because you're not here, but I will try to attach it somehow or get it to Sarah.
Right now.
Oh, she's gonna send it to you. So there you go. Way to go, Gina. Thank you.
Sure.
So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Joanna Root, and I worked for Stone Martin Builders for the past 4 years. When they first came to town to Huntsville, I was their first agent, and I kind of helped them get off the ground here and get things started. And I worked for them in several different communities as the on-site agent. Are you coming in?
I'm coming in.
Do you want to?
Oh,
It's just a little guideline thing.
Thank
Keep
you,
me on
ma'am.
track, really, but you can take notes if you want. But I worked for them in several different communities all over Huntsville, Madison. And in January, I decided that it's time for change. So I know Kara Cunningham really well. I actually sold her house that she lives in when I was selling that neighborhood, and we've done some deals together. And she's like, "You gotta come to Keller Williams," because I'm actually going to Breland, but I'm waiting on a community to be finished, streets to be finished. So I'm just kind of here in the meantime. I've done a couple deals since I've been here, just hanging out, waiting until it's time for me to go to Breland. So that's kind of how my history in real estate for the last 4 years. I was with them, and sold a lot of houses, and I worked with a whole lot of agents, a lot that are here at Keller Williams too. And so as an on-site agent, I just think that it's important to have a good rapport with all of the other agents. Things that I talk about today, when I say builder, I mean production builders. Y'all know the difference. Production, I don't know how long you guys have been in real estate, or how much new construction you do, or what your experience is, but there's a difference in custom builder and production builder. But when I'm saying builder, I mean production builder. So you go into a community, there's an on-site agent in the model home, that's a production build. Most of the time, well, in all cases now, almost all cases, they have a set floor plans, several floor plans that you can pick from. They're not going to make changes, that sort of thing. So that's what I mean by builder. So the very first, most important thing I can tell you, and for you to tell your clients if they're considering new construction, is that there are hundreds of people who build this house, and things will go wrong. They're going to go wrong. That's the number one thing that is important for you to communicate to your client, that it's going to go wrong. Something's going to get installed wrong. Something's going to, the schedule's not going to work right. Something's going to happen. And it's important to let them know that up front, because when you don't, and then something goes wrong, it is very hard to come back from that. Your client is very upset, and they're upset at you, they're upset at the builder, they're upset at me, the on-site agent, they're upset at everybody. And in order to try to avoid some of that, I just tell them up front. When I'm writing their contract, I tell them things are going to go wrong. It's going to. If robots built your house, then it probably wouldn't. But humans build it, and humans make mistakes every day, and it's going to happen. So that's probably the most important thing to me, as far as when you're starting from the ground up. Now, there are at Stone Martin, they call them spec homes, and I don't know what Breland calls them because I hadn't started there yet, but some people call them market homes. Some people call them move-in ready homes, which there's not any move-in ready homes these days because that's the market. But as far as homes that are already under construction, that most builders start 6, 8, whatever, when they move into a new community, and those houses typically, depending on what stage. Things can't be changed in those houses because they've already been, picked out and that sort of thing. And the builder it's just like buying a resale house. Your client in most cases are not going to be able to personalize things in those. So we call them pre-sales or spec homes. So there is a difference there, but no matter which way you go, unless the house is completed, things are gonna go wrong. So, number two, a good on-site agent is eager to answer all of your questions. I can't tell you how many times an agent will call me and ask me questions and then apologize because they felt like they were bothering me. No, that's literally my job, is to answer as an on-site agent, is to answer your questions and your client's questions and to the best of my ability. Now I will say, let me preface this because I had a client, a buyer, write a contract with a new construction build since I've been here, and we went around to a whole lot of different builders. There are differences in on-site agents, I will say that. The things that I tell you, it might not be your experience with other on-site agents. And I don't mean to, like, I'm not trying to sound, toot my own horn or anything like that. But there is a level of customer service that you don't always get. So you need to be aware of that too. These things that I'm telling you, like, don't go back and say, but she told me that, because I don't want to ever tell anybody how to do their job, but, to me, this is what, I feel like, should be done. But that's my job, is to answer your questions, answer your client's questions. Even if you've asked me it 3 other times, still ask again if you don't know, because I'd rather you ask than tell your client something that's not accurate, because when that happens, then your client is your client. So if I try to tell them something different because that's not accurate, then they think that I'm trying to lie to them or mislead them or something because you're their agent and you told them that. So just make sure, if you don't know the answer, don't assume, always ask, because that's the on-site agent's job, is to answer those questions for you. And most of the time they're happy to, because they don't get paid. I didn't get paid. It's just like in general until a house closed. So I want to sell the house just like you do. Number 3, I love this one. In this market right now, builders are not giving concessions. So if you tell your client, we're going to ask for a fence, we're going to ask for a washer and dryer, we're going to ask for a fridge, we're going to ask for blinds, you've set them up for disappointment, because the builder is 99% of the time going to say no. They don't have.
blinds yesterday, can you believe it?
You got
I
blinds?
did.
I
They
got
wanted
blinds
to
for my
sell
client
it, yeah.
too, but
I asked
anyway.
I would ask anyway.
yes,
And who was the
Yeah.
builder?
Run.
You know what I do though? I ask the agent without the client present.
right. And there was a time back in 2018 when, they would give blinds. They would, Stone Martin never gave a fence, but we could get blinds, we could get a fridge sometimes. But right now, things are selling so quickly, and there's a lot, just like there's a housing shortage, there's a lot inventory shortage. So the builders don't have to give away anything, and their bottom lines are really hurting right now because supplies are going up by the day, and so they can't give away anything for free. Everybody thinks that builders are making all this money, when in essence they start a build at this price, and then by the time they get to the garage door and gutters, the price of that material has doubled, and so they've had to pay double, but they only charged the customer for what they anticipated it was going to be. So they just don't have it in their budget to give away free stuff. So just don't tell your clients. I know. And I've had agents tell me before, well, I don't feel like I'm doing my job for my client if I don't ask. And that's fine. I mean, I understand that. But if you're going to, tell them, just tell them they're likely not going to give it to you, but we're going to ask anyway. Because those days are gone, that builders are going to give you free stuff. They're just not. Number 4, most builders have their own contract that protects their interest, and it's important for you and your client to understand all the terms of it. So ask to see it ahead of time. So that's not always possible, because sometimes people go and look at a house and they decide they want to buy that right then. So, you can't ask for it in advance. But when I worked for Stone Martin and Breland, and I know Davidson, and I know D.R. Horton, and Hyde and Adams and DSLV, they all have their own contracts And that contract is rock solid, and it does not provide your buyer for any kind of protection. It is all written to protect the builder. So you need to know what that contract says and what your buyer is signing. If I would always sit down with the clients and go over the contract line by line at Stone Martin. It's gonna be a little different at Breland because they do all of theirs electronically. But I want people to know what they're signing, because I don't want 3 months down the road for them to come back and say, but blah, blah, blah. Well, no, the contract says this, and you can't do that. So I will probably set up Zoom meetings, and that's what I did a lot, because I sold to a lot of out-of-town people. I would just set up a Zoom meeting, and we would go over that contract line by line by line, because, I know it seems elementary, but that contract is a legally binding contract for your client to purchase that home. So the builder is going to go out and get a loan for that house, and they're going to start the build. So if your client in 2 months finds a house that they like better and they want to not purchase that house anymore, there are legal ramifications of that. And I know Stone Martin holds their feet to the fire. Actually, their contract says that your buyer will pay 5% of the purchase price to get out of that contract if they decide they don't want the house anymore. There's also no financing contingency. So even if they can't get the loan, they better find some money to buy the house. So you really need to know what the contract says, because it can get sticky. And there are other builders in town that their contracts aren't so detailed, but you just have to know what it says, no matter who you're going with. And tell your client, I know you're not a lawyer, and but you need to know what it says in layman's terms so that you can explain it to your client, so there's no questions later on. Number 5, we want you to be actively involved. I've had it both ways. There's a happy medium, let me say that. So I've had agents that I have done deals with that I have never even met in person, not one time. They never came to an appointment, they never came to a walkthrough, they never came to a closing. And everything got looped, they signed it, and they picked up their check from the attorney's office later on, I guess, or something, I don't know, but never saw them. And then I've had agents who call me every other day and want to know what's going on with the house. I don't have time to answer your questions every other day, so, but we want you to be involved. So somebody did ask, Jennifer McDaniel actually asked on the Facebook page the other day about how you can be involved. So when I was with Stone Martin, we sent weekly updates as the on-site agent. We sent pictures and a weekly update to the clients that said, hey, here's what's going on at your house this week. Breland does not do that, but I told them that I will probably continue to still do that, because here's what happened. Before we implemented that at Stone Martin, my phone was nonstop. I would have 35-ish people under contract at one time. So you can imagine trying to fill all of that and then still trying to sell houses. So all the time, my phone rang, my email, my text messages. But then I finally said, okay, I got to take back control of my schedule. So I'm going to send weekly updates to my clients on Thursdays was my day. So every Thursday, I went to every house I had under contract, and I took pictures. And I would send an email to those clients that said, hey, here's what's happened at your house in the last week. Here's what's scheduled to happen next week. If your on-site agent is not doing that and you want to keep in contact with that client during that build process, that's a very good thing to do, because you won't really know what's scheduled unless you've done a lot of new construction and you know what the process is. But you can tell them what has happened, what's different in the week that you were there last. And if there's nothing different, I would just say there's nothing different, because sometimes, even though it looks like nothing's happening, like when a house gets framed and what we call dried in, gets the roof on it, and then it has all the electrical, plumbing, and mechanical gas pulled into the house, then it's inspection time. And sometimes those inspections can take a week, and sometimes those inspections can take 2 months. It really just depends on the inspector, and it depends on the subcontractors and if they're coming back to fix the problems that the inspectors found, and so on and so forth. So, that house can sit for a month and nothing happened, and your client's going to be really mad because nothing has happened. But after all that stuff is done, before drywall happens, all of those inspections have to happen. And it depends on what municipality you're in, but it's anywhere from 3 to 6 inspections have to happen. And once they call in the inspection, the inspector gets 3 days to come, and then if there's a problem, then they have to get the subcontractor back out to fix it, and then they have to call the inspector again, and the inspector gets 3 more days to come. So it's this big, long, drawn out process. So if you go to the house and nothing's going on, it's okay to touch base with the on-site agent and say, and I just did that 2 days ago, matter of fact, with mine that's under contract, because not much had happened. So I said, hey, where are we at on inspections? Because, it's been a month and we still don't have drywall. So she told me what was going on. As an on-site agent myself, I try to give you those updates. But it doesn't always happen with other on-site agents. But that is a good way to keep in contact with your client during the process of the build, is to just reach out weekly. And, I know everybody's busy, maybe make it bi-weekly. You don't have to make it weekly, make it bi-weekly, but, just keep in contact with them, so that, at 6 months down the road, when it's time to close the house, you're not, oh, I remember you from 6 months ago, because everybody gets busy. We have other clients, that sort of thing, but it's wise to, and your client is going to that house probably daily if they're local, or every other day. So they know what's going on, but still it's good to talk to you, because that way, they can keep that rapport with you. Let me touch on that while I'm there. Your client is going to the house, but every single builder in this town has a clause in their contract that says that your client cannot be on that property without the representative there, the on-site agent, because it's a liability issue, and their insurances make them have that in their contract. So, so when your client gets upset because something went wrong, because they didn't hear you when you told them that something was going to go wrong, they, and they call you screaming, hollering, and then the on-site agent gets involved in all this. Likely, the on-site agent's going to say, well, your client's not supposed to be on the property without me, because that's what the contract says. So every party has to follow all the terms of the contract. So just let your people know that up front, that more than likely they're not supposed to be on the property. So if they're on the property, then, it can get kind of sticky. And a lot of people are going to say, but that's my money I'm invested in. I need to make sure that they're not doing anything. And I understand that. But you signed the contract, and the contract says you will not go on the property unless the on-site agent is with you. And a lot of times the on-site agent will schedule a time for you to go. I had like 2 or 3 different clients that every other week we had to meet at their house because they just had to know what was going on. They were going without me, but because I'd see their little car pull in the neighborhood and leave. But anyway, we want you to be actively involved in the process, but just not overly involved. So you don't need to call every other day. Building a house takes a long, long time. Number 6 is imperative to set expectations up front. So this is kind of like, and I pulled out a specific example for later on, but that is probably the biggest thing that I found in new construction, is that people had these expectations that things were going to be a certain way, or things were going to go a certain way. And because they weren't properly, or not that we weren't setting, not that I wasn't setting the expectations up front, they weren't hearing the expectations up front. So we all have to be a team. We all have to work together to get the house to close. So when when I'm telling you to read the contract and the terms and that sort of thing, set those expectations for them so that we can all be on the same page later on, because it becomes sticky when something does go wrong and then everybody's upset. So we all just start out setting those expectations for them. Then it's a little bit easier to navigate later on. So number 7, this is part of the setting expectations. Builders can't predict like things that go wrong, like supply shortages, when it rains for a whole month, or when there's a pandemic or something like that. So some builders are getting away from giving you a close date when you write your contract. Other builders are still giving you an estimated close date. So for the ones that give you an estimated close date, please, please, please tell your clients that is an estimated close date. It's likely not going to close on that day. It's likely going to be pushed out. Because what they're doing is they're predicting how long it takes them to build a house. And they can't predict things that are going to happen along the way, that maybe you have a slab leak, maybe you have, something was framed wrong and the framer didn't come back to fix it for a week and that set them back a week, or, there's all kinds of hundreds of examples that I could give you of why a house schedule will get pushed. But people like to look at that date on the contract and think that, okay, well, 60 days before that, I'm going to lock my interest rate and I'm going to put my house on the market and I'm going to schedule movers and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then we get to time that their house was originally supposed to close and it's not going to because it's not ready. And they're like, but I'm going to be homeless. So what's the builder going to do? Are they going to find me a place to go? Are they going to pay for my storage? Are they going to pay for my movers? Are they going to pay my interest rate lock? Are they going to? And the answer is no, they're not going to, because that was an estimated closing date. And that contract is going to tell you how long the builder has to extend that estimated close date. So make sure you read your contract. I know a lot of builders, because of the pandemic, have changed it to say that there is no end to that estimated close date. They can extend it as many times as they want to until they get the house finished, because they just can't predict things. Most builders want happy homeowners, but it's important that your client understand that there is no perfect house, not even a brand new one. This is tough because you're their agent, they're coming to you. I've had multiple situations where the agent has told the client there is no perfect house. And the client is like, well, who do you represent, them or me? So then the client turns on you because you're not representing them. Well, you got to tell them up front, there is no perfect house, even a brand new one. There's not. Should it be as close as they can get it? Yes. But builders build to, and you can all look up this document, it's called Residential Performance Guidelines. And that is like a standard for builders nationwide. And that's basically a tolerance. So builders have tolerances that they can go off of. So when you're looking for paint and drywall imperfections, the Residential Performance Guidelines say that your client has to stand 6 feet away from the wall in natural daylight to find imperfections in drywall and paint. So have y'all done blue tape walkthroughs with clients?
Yeah, residential
Performance guidelines.
That's really good verbiage to use.
That is good verbiage.
It
Okay.
takes the pressure off.
Yes,
me.
that's a third party.
Third
Yes,
party.
it's a third party. So residential performance guidelines. When you are doing a blue tape walk, this is your client most of the time. Look, there's something right here and right here. That's not 6 feet away.
Y'all can't see her, but she's like really close up to the wall, pointing
But
everything
that's how
out.
they do a blue tape walk. And I understand, look, I bought a house last year and that house, they basically had to repaint the whole thing.
Yeah.
That was me as a buyer. I get it. I understand. But when the guidelines lay it out and say, this is what you gotta do, this is what you gotta do. Some builders enforce that, some builders do not. The point is, that is very, like you said, tense when your client is like, well, what are you going to do about it to you? Because they feel like something needs to be fixed. Another one is cracks in concrete. Something that you all need to learn right now is that there's 2 types of concrete, one that's cracked and one that's going to crack. That's it. Those are the 2 kinds, one that's cracked and one that's going to crack. Concrete cures for hundreds of years and it's eventually going to crack. If the crack is, it's different in the driveway than the garage, and I don't know what the tolerance is. One is 7/8 and one is something else. But if the crack is, not to the guideline, they don't have to fix it, and they're not going to because it costs them money. So they're going to have to pay for that to fix something that's within tolerance. So they're not going to. That's a big one because a lot of people think that if their garage is cracked, or their slab before their flooring goes down, that they have foundation issues. No, It's cracks because concrete cracks. So now if it's shifted, then there is that's against the tolerance, and they do have to fix it. But just a crack is not an issue. That's typical. That's what new construction does.
And you said the drywall is 6 feet
In natural
in
daylight.
natural daylight.
Yes, so no
I'm gonna
flashlights.
order this for the office. So we have.
Yeah,
There's
it
this
does.
performance guideline.
I just like
Yeah.
the verbiage because,
Yeah.
like I said, it's a third party.
Okay,
Right.
so
I
the
didn't say
concrete,
that.
the wall, and then what were some of the other ones?
So there's a lot.
Yeah.
That's
people
in
know
this
the difference-
document, that's in this document that.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
it's like 80 something pages.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a big one.
And is that referenced in
Yeah, I'm gonna order
contract?
it, so we have.
So Stone Garden represents the mayors.
Okay.
I don't know about other.
Because this is the first time I've ever heard that, so
Yeah.
I think that's really important for me to bring up during the meeting.
Stone Garden actually they give your
All the
buyers
other
a
stuff.
tablet, and it's on there, it's loaded on there for the buyers to have.
Is
So,
it? Oh.
I don't know if other builders do it.
Sometimes
or
it's not
or
a
if
good
they
thing
even
when you have an
reference it.
OCD person that's read that whole thing and knows that inside and out.
Well, and it's not even, not only that, like, even if it's not red, like, we had a situation one time where, it was something about a toilet that, like, the buyer thought it had too much caulk in between the toilet and the tile. But there was nothing, like, the caulk was a little thick, they thought, like, they didn't think that the toilet sat far enough down on the tile. So it is, and we deal with a lot of engineers.
They
in this
become
area, y'all.
instant, they're
yeah.
And
instant
they
builders
are-
overnight, like they know right
Yeah.
away they are
Yeah.
professionals.
Yes, but there was nothing in the residential performance guidelines about that. So sometimes it's just the builder's call, and that house is the builder's house until your client signs the papers at closing, and, they will tell them whether they'll fix something or not. Kind of on those same lines,
And if they won't, it's no big deal, because they'll keep the deposit and sell it to somebody.
That's
and whatever,
that's
whatever.
exactly what I was gonna say.
Nothing is legal, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Part of your setting expectations is, even though they've invested some money, it's not their home.
Right.
They think it's their house.
Exactly, it's
your
not their house until they sign the papers and get the keys at closing. That's what I was about to touch on. Please, please, please tell your clients to never, ever, ever tell the on-site agent or the superintendent or, whoever they see at the house, or write an email to the builder or whatever that says, if you don't do such and such, I'm not going to close on the house.
Is that
Because-
correct?
Because that actually is, against the contract, like they can't say that. That's terms for termination, that's calls for termination of the contract, and the builder will keep their money and say, okay, next, because they want happy homeowners in their houses. They don't want people who are gonna go down and find the person who's looking at their house when they're not supposed to be, while it's under construction, and saying, oh, well, this is wrong, and this is wrong, and I hate this, and blah, blah, blah. Because then it just creates this big cycle of animosity, and the builders don't want that. They want happy homeowners, and so they'll do things within reason to fix things that come up, but there's no perfect house. So the sooner that your clients understand that, the better off that they will be. It's very important to stay in contact with the lender during the process. So a lender's job is what? To lock in that interest rate so that they know that that buyer is theirs. And they're gonna do everything they can to try to get your buyer to lock their interest rate within usually 60 days. Well, again, back to the contract. If that house is not gonna close in 60 days, then what happens when the rate lock expires? You're gonna have a very, very mad client, because they're gonna be paying a per dollar, usually between $50 and $100 a day for a rate lock extension if interest rates have gone up. And we're dealing with that right now because interest rates are going back up. So make sure you're in contact with the lender and your client, and just tell your client, hey buyer, don't lock your interest rate until we have a firm closing date for sure. Not the estimated closing date, the firm closing date, because somebody's gonna have to pay that rate lock fee, or they're gonna have to take the higher interest rate at the end of the deal if they get their rate locked too soon. Number 10 is communication is key. Everything needs to be in writing, and both agents need to be copied. So this gets tricky because as the on-site agent, a lot of times I have buyers who will email me something because, like Gina, her client, she's already said, no, they're not gonna do that, whatever, your client has came up and said, oh, well, this tile right here in the middle on row 3 is a little bit crooked, and I want them to rip the whole tile out and fix it. And you said, no, that's within tolerance or whatever, that they're not gonna do that. Then they'll email me, that's all on that agent, and say, and I don't even know they talked to you, and then they'll try to just start this whole back and forth with me, and, I'll tell them the same thing. I don't know you've talked to them, you don't know I've talked to them. So I tell clients all the time, if you're gonna send me something, copy your agent. And if they send me something and don't copy their agent, I will reply and copy their agent on it and bring them into the loop. Because that way they can't play us against each other, because we are, we're all coworkers basically, and we all need to have a good working relationship. So, and one of the very first things I learned in real estate is buyers are liars, and I have lived by that. I love my buyers, y'all, but they are liars. Okay, so they are going to tell you something that
They
is
want
not
to get what they
necessarily
want,
true.
yeah.
Yes, and I understand buying a house is the biggest investment a person's going to make in their life, and it is serious business, and people lose their minds. They do, but I tell people when I'm writing their contract, we're friends today, because by the time I write a contract with somebody, 9 times out of 10, I spent probably 2 or 3, 4 hours with them already. And we're friends, like we talk about our kids, we talk about, what's going on in our life, whatever. And I tell them, we're friends today, and I want to be friends at the end of this process. But the only way to do that is to have clear and open communication this whole time. So if you're upset about something, please come tell me, but let your agent know too. Don't come tell me, please email me, copy your agent on it. That sort of thing, because we all need to be in the loop. Nobody needs to be blindsided by anything. So that's really all I have for y'all. Do y'all have any questions you want to ask?
I have a couple questions. So what do you recommend when, so I've got a couple of situations where the agent has that expectation, the on-site agent, and they're not following through with what they said they would do. So of course I have upset clients that they said they would email back, every Wednesday, and we're not getting that, and we're not getting responses, and that, and I will have to say my client has been towing the line on what the expectations were, but the other party's not following suit. And we had the agent and I have a good relationship, but and I know this person is overwhelmed very much, so I get it. But I'm like, you're the one who set the expectation.
Right, exactly. And that's what I would say. I mean, you set this expectation that you're going to email my client every Wednesday or whatever it was, and you're not following that.
Yeah.
So
do we need a new day, or do we need a new
right.
time frame?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's fine. That's what I would do if I were in that situation.
And then, can you speak to a little bit why, I mean, you may not know this 100%, because it's kind of new, but why they are doing a lot of the companies now are doing the for purchase only, the pre-sales, like putting a limit on the numbers, and how you feel about waiting lists?
Yeah. Okay, so as I said earlier, there's not only a housing shortage, there's also a lot inventory shortage. So because of the lot inventory shortage and because of the price of materials, builders have decided that they're going to limit what they will put on the ground as far as spec homes, or what they will allow, how many pre-sales they will allow a month in the community, that sort of thing, because they just have to right now. And that kind of sounds like a cop out, but it's the truth. I mean, when lumber in August, lumber overnight went up 60%. So the lumber package on a house went up about $15,000 overnight in August. So I'll just use Stone Martin as an example, because that's who I worked for at the time. At the time, we had about 300 something houses under contract that had not had their lumber dropped yet. So 300 houses times $15,000. Took a loss for that. The builder took a loss for that, because they had charged the client.
They were already under contract.
Exactly.
Pre-sale.
Exactly. And when you're under contract,
Okay.
you have to abide by the terms. So you can't just say, hey, buyer, lumber went up $15,000. So guess what? You're going to be charged $15,000 more. They couldn't. So they took a loss for that money. So they, of course, increase their prices over, that day that they found out, but it doesn't make up for all the money that they lost before that. So now they're trying, and every builder in town is doing it, trying to limit that again, because lumber is still going up. It has not went back down and it's still increasing. Metal for gutters is going up, windows is going up. The OSB, which is basically the roof decking, that's went up like 200%. I mean, all of these materials just keep going up and they don't have a way to predict of when it's going to rise. The cost of development is going up to actually develop communities. So that's why they're limiting it. And I don't fault the builder for that. Like, I think that they have to, or else they'll go bankrupt. I mean, there's not another option, another good option right now.
They
as
can't
far
set the price for pre-sale without knowing what
Exactly.
their costs are gonna be.
Yes, yes.
Which is nice to be able to explain that to your buyers, you know, when they're frustrated.
So lumber went up 600%,
No, 60%.
60%, okay.
About, on
15, about
average,
15,000 a house.
about 15,000 a house
That's a
in
great number
August. But
to
then
That is
it's
a great
increased,
number.
it's increased twice in advance. That was in August.
Oh,
It's increased twice
Yeah.
since then.
and we
So-
think it's just all COVID.
That's what they say. They say it's a shortage of, like, they can't ship the lumber here fast enough because we're in a housing boom, you know, and they can't get it here. They don't have enough truckers to get it here. And most of the pine that's used for the houses here, it's spruce pine, it's grown in Canada. So crossing over the border because Canada's been closed because of COVID. So it's been a time to try to get lumber. So it just keeps going up because it's supply and demand.
Yeah,
So the more people want lumber, the more it just keeps going up because they can't get it. So they're trying to, you
How do you
know,
get the
That's
lumber
what
business?
Well, that, like, literally, my friend, I'll tell it off, that's off, they own, their family owns lots of land down by Butler, Alabama, with tons of lumber. It wasn't them, but I texted her, I said, are you $150 million richer today, question mark? Because a company just paid $149 million for like 20 acres of lumber.
of lumber, yeah.
You know, for lumber. Jennifer McDaniel just texted me, and she's
Oh,
not
sorry.
on here, is she?
I know.
No, but she says, is it normal for builders to miss most of the studs?
What do you mean?
That's
most of
what it
the
is.
stuff?
That's what I'm curious.
Like, I need to know,
Is she in a building? I thought
Oh.
I seen her.
Are you
I
here?
understand what she's asking because like
Okay.
growing up with my dad, he works in part of the construction part of it. And I met him on a job site a few months ago and there's like 6 attempts for one joint and there's 5 out through the wood and only one
Nails?
connecting it.
that's pretty common these days, yeah.
Oh, that was all in my house.
I think that's what she's asking.
Right, yeah, we just built.
And that is, and this is part of setting the expectation for your clients too. And it is what it is
Mhm,
right now
yeah,
in this
right.
market. We have not only do we have a housing shortage and a lot shortage, we also have a tradesman shortage. So, most of the workers, and I'm gonna try to say this as politically correct as I can, but most of the people who build the houses, especially in the framing part of it, are not US citizens. They were not raised here. They were raised in a completely different lifestyle than we were. They do not throw away their trash. They do not always use the porta potty. There are things that we
This is all
look
true.
at.
Jeff was talking about her house had trash all in it,
I mean,
and then the next house that was being built was all clean, and Jeff was mad, I was like, it's not bothering me to see this, but it bothered him.
they
So-
clean it up before they get to the next step. But your clients are gonna go-
But you're right.
And actually, sometimes, yeah, I feel like
And
sometimes
most of the
that's
time, they're gonna find beer bottles. Go on ahead and tell them. All the construction
Drink on
sites
the
are gonna
job.
have beer bottles on them, and that's exactly what we get.
That's why they
So-
dress in a
For these young
spoon.
people- for these young people,
So
building
Jennifer-
a house.
It's not here, but she just says, no, I have a Mac, I said, are you here? I don't know what, so no, I have a Mac client who had a manhole put in the middle of the backyard, $8,000 premium lot. And it's not on the map they gave us. Don't they have to tell us that?
Did they walk the lot?
Wait, what? I didn't understand her question. What's her question? She
Yeah, I
had
think that would be in the writing.
The
no?
manhole, like a sewer.
No,
Because that could be something that just pops up.
So basically, I will tell you this too, and
It's
she
so
brings up a
funny,
good
so I
point.
don't know if she knows that I'm in here,
Yeah.
that's why she's texting me.
It brings up a good point. If you're doing a pre-sale with your client, walk the lot. Or if you're doing a spec home and you don't just go in the house, walk the lots, because the way subdivisions are set up these days, there are sewers in backyards. And let me tell you something, tell your client out of the gate, you will not have a flat yard. There is no such thing as a flat yard. You do not want a flat yard. It is set up for drainage. So you will have slopes and you will have swells in your yard. And it is on purpose to get water away from your foundation. So you're not gonna have a flat yard. Yes, walk the lot. You need to walk the
She hasn't
lot.
answered my question. She said it was not on the plat.
Does it have to be?
Doesn't have to be on the plat.
I'm
Yeah.
just a bit, I'm here. Which
Yeah.
one? She said it does not have to be.
It doesn't, I mean, I've seen lots of site plans that don't have it drawn on there either. I mean, it doesn't.
So
have
who
to be
determines that? Does the
like-
city just come in and say, this is where we're putting
The
it?
developer puts them in and the developer works with the city and says, and this is drainage. So, yeah, no, it was there when they contracted on that lot. I can guarantee.
I
they
was gonna
come
say,
back
so
and
at
put it
what
on.
point, how do we know, let's say for example, we do a pre-sale and it's just dirt, how do we know when to ask that?
It'll be
Or-
there.
It will be there,
Yeah,
okay.
it'll be
It's
there.
already,
Yes,
Okay.
before the lots are released
so
for
it should have already
development.
been there.
Yes.
So they
it will
already-
be there.
Sewage is already got to be
Correct.
there.
Correct,
Okay.
yes, yes.
That's what I was
Before we
thinking.
can sell you a lot to build a house on, all that has to be in, all the utilities have to be in.
So I have another quick, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting anybody else's questions. So I have a client that's building, custom, well, not really custom, but it's anyway, it's not quite production. But they weren't told where their field lines were gonna be for their septic, and they wanted to put in pool. Well, luckily, she caught them ahead of time, because she walked a lot every single day, she knew what was going on every single day in the house. But her neighbors did not. So they were all very upset, and actually one of them was backing out of contract because the sewer lines, the field lines were already laid. And they want to put in a pool and a detached garage, so now it negates like the majority of their yard. So they're gonna walk away from the contract for that reason. How do we know?
I
And that's
can't answer a question about septic lines because I
You're
don't
not
deal
doing
with septic tanks. Like
I'm just
every
wondering in the
community I've
process.
ever sold has been sewer. And I have sold some that have a sewer easement in them, so that will be on the plat.
Sure.
So, yes.
I was just wondering in the process, like, how do we know to ask that kind of thing, because you don't know what you don't know until you come across it,
Right,
so.
right, yeah.
You know, if that was my
And if
client.
it is septic tank, I would just ask, can you
Yeah.
tell us where the field lines are gonna be and see
Yeah.
what they say, you know?
It's something
because I-
again up front.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, anything that's important to your client.
What happened?
Sorry, ladies. We were talking about sewer and septic. Joanna said most of her neighborhoods have been sewer, but we were talking about making sure you ask if someone's building custom or building with a septic to ask where the field lines are gonna be.
When you said about the, having the expectations and beyond the contract, is there something that you could ask, like a timeline, even if it was just a basic timeline, like?
A timeline as far as how long the build's gonna take?
Yeah, or what steps come when or whatever, or when is that all in the
I think
contract?
that's gonna depend on the on-site agent. The contract will not tell you a schedule. It's just not, it just doesn't. Basically, what is the contract for to build the house? It doesn't really give you a schedule except for that estimated close date on some builders. But as far as, the steps of the house, I mean, I think that's okay to ask the, on-site agent. It depends on who you build with. Like with Stone Martin, they have access to an app called Builder Trend, and your client can follow along. It actually will tell them everything that's happening. So
It'll be a trend.
Do you think that most builders are moving to that now?
I don't know. I know some do,
It's
but
Stone Martin,
um,
she's going, and the girl that's there is nothing like you into the first 5 minutes. I'm thinking, you need to go back over here.
Well, I will say,
What neighborhood?
in their defense, in the defense of the agents, they hired couple young people who I don't think have a lot of experience, and I don't think they have any idea what they were getting into.
My first thought was,
No.
like, how old are you?
Yeah, not that it's, I mean, I think they just got kind of thrown to the wolves, and, because I've had spoken to a lot of them too.
3 of us quit, so they didn't really.
She
have a
says
choice.
she's been running crazy and she's been over several communities and stuff.
It's probably Gabrielle. Yeah.
Yeah,
She's
she's
not.
the same one's not answering, and I feel, and she's sweet as can be, and I feel so bad for her, because she had
Me
no
too, I thought,
idea.
this
she had
poor
no
child.
clue. She hadn't even written a contract yet, right? And they gave her that position.
Because I quit.
Yeah.
They had.
And also Whitney.
When you do work for the builders, like they don't like grandfather you in, kind of like have someone shadow somebody before, or they just do the new ones in?
Well, all three of them had to quit.
I think it depends
Also,
on the
yeah.
builder. I think it depends on the builder. I don't want to say too much, but, so. Is it,
Yeah.
is it being recorded? Yeah,
It should be.
yeah, it is.
If not, we'll
I
discuss after.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
She said, I don't want to say too much. I was like, well, it's being.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing that a lot of people don't know anyways, but, so they decided to change our pay structure. Okay, so I will say this too, because I was gonna touch on this earlier. There's very few that I know of, but most agents, most on-site agents, in town, if your client tells you tells the on-site agent they're working with you, they're gonna put you on the contract, even if negotiate with your client. There are a few agents in town that aren't like that, and so on-site agents got a bad rap with, people tell their client, don't go anywhere at a new construction neighborhood without me, because, then, I won't be your agent. And there were they wanted to reduce my commission, and, not so Martin, but the brokerage that we worked under. And, I sold 63 houses last year and worked like 80-hour weeks all year long. And I just wasn't okay with that. And neither were 2 other agents. And so all 3 of us quit. So, in Stomar's defense, that's kind of what's happened. Like Gabrielle was just a junior agent, and, she's not written the contract, and she had to take over, my neighborhood that was still under construction, a new neighborhood that I had just opened up and, was working on. And then she got Eastview behind Bob Jones, and so,
But in a different circumstances,
been-
they would normally be.
right, yes, Nora, because that's what we had hired her for, as a junior agent, for her to shadow and,
Okay, okay.
and so, yeah, most of the time, but then there are other builders that don't do that, like with Breland, I'm just going in to,
But probably because you already.
right,
experienced,
right,
so,
yes,
but-
yeah.
And I would say too, like the Jeff Bentons and Woodlands don't hire anybody that doesn't already have your experience. It's probably
Right.
very rare that they do that. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, I guess with them, like, there wouldn't have either, like you said, she was there, learning it.
So that's why I'm trying
Right.
to cut her slack, because I know, and that's why I tell my
Yeah.
client, I'm like, look, this is not a great excuse, but this is really not her fault. I mean, she is super overwhelmed. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't
Well,
imagine.
Phillips is
Just
done
right
now,
now,
so she doesn't have that anymore, and so I think she only has Eastview right now, and maybe, I'm not sure if he's doing Athens, but.
She is, that's all
Oh,
right.
she's doing Legends, okay.
She said she was having to run between like 3, somewhere
Which
down
one
South
had
Parkway.
That's Phillips, yeah, but the last one closed, so yesterday, so they're good, so.
Legends.
Or maybe maybe the next to last one, but anyways, so.
She's been nice, but you can tell, I mean, I felt for her,
There's something else I was gonna ask you, I'll ask it now.
But anyway, so like I said, you can ask for even, I don't mean like even anything like firmly, but just because she nor my client have ever done this before, so like, what is,
Right,
Just know kind of how
well,
it
and
goes.
some builders do frame walks, some builders don't, some builders do pre-construction walks if you're doing a pre-sale, some builders don't. So you really have to talk to the on-site agent to ask them, and what their process is. Like I said, Stomart does builder transfer your clients, if they're writing with them, they'll have access with that.
it's like a website or
Um,
something?
It's an app, and they get, they email them, and so they'll be able to follow along on the calendar and see. But as far as, the schedule, I don't know of any builder that just flat out says, here's the steps of building the house, so.
What I've been trying to do to kind of combat what you said about agents not knowing, because I think a lot of times y'all don't, or, I don't know if y'all people are trained this way, or they just don't think about it, don't ask right away, are you working with an agent? And then sometimes your clients don't know, if you haven't had a client for a long time, it knows, oh, Gina's my agent, and sometimes they don't know they can have an agent.
Right.
So,
right.
I've been trying, and it's very challenging, but I've been trying to, like, if I know they're interested in new construction, I just go email every single neighborhood that I know about, and be like, this is my client, they may come and see you. That
Right.
way, at least, again, it goes back to setting expectations.
Right, right.
Even if my client doesn't say anything, at least I have some kind of backup that says, hey, I sent them to you, I told you about, I told them about you.
Right, and I always try to ask,
Yeah.
like, are you working with an agent?
You know, if your
I think that's a
client
bad
goes
rap, I think
without
it's with
you
bad
knowing,
reference, I think,
you
I know
find
there's
out, send
neighborhoods
an
that I
email.
know. I'm sorry.
I'll say, or if your client goes without you knowing, when you find out, then you
Yeah,
send an
absolutely.
email like,
Right.
hey, my client
Yeah.
stopped
Yeah.
by,
Yeah.
to see you today.
Yeah, 'cause I would imagine a lot of people probably just go looking.
Yeah, 'cause I know
Right.
you
Oh,
do that,
absolutely.
because I
You
know
go
it.
out on Sunday or
You would know
whatever.
right off, if you like the neighbor or don't, you move on.
Well, it goes back to the expectations in your buyer consultation, you tell them, and I don't know who it was, somebody was saying that, you give them your card as their free pass, and that's when you tell them, hey, here's your free pass for the, on-site agents not to ask for all your information, that way they
Oh,
know to
yeah,
contact you, you won't be
Oh, yeah,
inundated.
yeah.
Because that way you tell them, hey, when you go to new construction, make sure you tell them you have an agent.
Right,
Because I don't think they don't think about it, they just don't know,
Mhm.
unless we tell them to know.
Right.
So.
So the part about being involved too, is it preferable for the client to be in touch with you or through the agent?
Either way is fine. If the client is going to be, so some agents are really funny about their client contacting the on-site agent. They want to be, they want to be the go-to, and then they'll come to the on-site agent. I never cared if a client contacted me for something, but, I wanted them to copy their agent on it so that they knew that their agent knew that they were. And again, if they didn't copy, I would just reply and then loop their agent in as well. So, but I don't mind answering anybody's questions anytime. Now, I personally, when I email the contract to clients, I have a set business hours in my email. Because I'm gonna tell you something, your clients, they're gonna think you work 24/7, and they're gonna think I work 24/7. And they demand an answer right now because we live in a microwave society where everybody thinks they need the answer right now. And my email actually literally says, I work such and such day through such and such day, and I will answer your calls, texts, and emails between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. on those days, or the following day if it's after 4 p.m. Or if it's an emergency, I will answer those then. Or if it's not an emergency, I will answer your questions in your weekly update on Thursday. And an emergency is if your house is on fire, or if you have cabinets and it's flooded. Those are the only two house emergencies. Those are the only two. Other than that, everything else can be addressed in your weekly email. And I had to do that because literally I was working myself to death and I was burnt out, and I was like, I'm not, I can't do this. Kind of probably what like Gabrielle is right now.
I bet, yeah, because one time we were looking and it was later at night. And not that, we were expecting an answer right there, but I had some fill in the blank kind of information,
Uh-huh.
and then turns out that did go to Susan, went like directly to her,
Mhm.
and I was like, oops, I think it would just went to a box till the next day.
Right.
You know, but
Um,
yeah, I'm sure they are getting just zapped
Bombarded,
all the time,
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Sonia has a question.
Yeah, thanks. I was wondering, in your opinion, who are the best builders to sit for?
Whoever's talking to you. To sit for, ooh, I don't know really, because I don't know what everybody's setup is. So I think it's important for you to find out like what their pay is as a sitter. Some builders pay like a $500 fee, and that's what Breland is. I know because I'm going to work there. If the buyer comes in and they have an agent, but you're there sitting, you'll get $500 for that deal. If they don't have an agent, then you get to be their agent, but at a 2% commission because you met them in the model home. And then there are other builders that don't have those, like they'll pay you 3% instead of 2%. So it really just depends. As far as builders with the best reputations, I guess, is that what you're asking? Personally, I think Stone Martin builds a great product. I still think they build a great product, even though I don't work for them. I think Breland builds a great product. I think Davidson builds a good product. Woodland builds a good product, but it's a painful process, in my opinion. Takes a long
Say that
time.
again.
Takes a really long time. Just tell your clients up front. Oh, you asked about waiting lists, because I was about to say Jeff Benton. I think Jeff Benton built a good product. But they have waiting lists, and she'd asked about that, so I'll just say my opinion on waiting lists. I don't personally like waiting lists, personally myself, but I understand why builders do it. They do it so that they can, have that
They have a reason
flow
for it,
of people who are interested while the development is under construction.
Mm.
But, it is a first come, first served basis.
Yeah, I think
so-
that's the underlying thing that I was gonna say is that the only reason I asked is I had somebody, I happened to be talking to Gabrielle and she said, hey, somebody from the River Landing, whatever it's called, just dropped out over there. If you call the agent there, you might be able to get in. And I kind of was able to slide in on that fourth sale,
Oh, right.
even though they still had a waiting list. So I feel like if you have on a waiting list,
They don't have a waiting list.
don't just sit on your laurels
Well,
thinking
they
you're
might
gonna
have a
call.
waiting list,
Just
but
make sure you call all the time.
yeah.
And I think because everybody does it differently, like you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. But
I don't think everybody
I don't-
pays a sitter fee either.
Yeah.
you don't think everybody pays
No.
attention?
I mean, as it really, people letting sitters happen, because I think usually, I know like Jeff Benton and those guys, unless you're in with like the agents that are there all the time.
Right,
you
right.
know, Have a relationship. with them.
So I know at Breland, we can pick our own. At Stone Martin, we can pick our own.
Oh, that's good.
That's how it was, 'cause I did,
PR court. and you
that's how I did
pick
the
your
artwork,
own.
and he got to pick. who he wants.
Yeah, and I know they pay $500 also. if it's a
I'm
team.
sorry.
Yeah, PR court is the same.
So that's like for the on-site agent to have the off day. So
Oh,
you just go in and fill in for them. when
Hey,
they're-
Sonia, I think if you're, from my perspective, if you're just looking for buyers, I think it's whoever has the most traffic. I don't care what kind of product they have. If they have people coming in the door, that's where I want to be. You know what I mean? Like,
But
I
right
want
now, they
buyers.
all have traffic. So,
That's true, that is
and
true.
I guess I
I
think.
call them all and see who's accepted, sitters,
Right,
get
yeah.
your foot in the door. and then
But you're
you
right,
can always
everybody's
go-
busy.
And I think it depends on what price
Price point,
buyers you
yeah,
want to,
absolutely.
because Adams and Hyde are gonna be a different price buyer than, Stone Martin, or Woodland, so.
Absolutely.
And
And if you,
Stone Martin houses, really, those are nice looking houses. It's very
They
nice.
build
it's a higher price point too.
It broke my heart to leave, I won't lie, like, I didn't want to
Sabrina
leave, but somebody asked me that today, but I don't think so.
She was,
Like
she was
that.
crying the day that I talked to her about, I think it was right after you left.
Yeah.
She's so overwhelmed.
Where's the brokerage on it?
It's a brokerage in Opelika called Idaho.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they're everywhere, seeing information, it's the first time I tell.
Sonia, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
I will say with that though, too, when I first started with J.R. Horton, I thought I would get more schooling from him, but no. And I didn't. So this was early on when it first started being an agent too.
Well, when I had a sitter, like, she was me when I wasn't there.
Yes, that's
Like,
how I
I wanted her
expected
to know everything I knew. I wanted her to, and that'll be the same way at Breland. I'll be at Cliff Farm at Breland. So, that they have to know the product. They have to know the floor plans. They have to know what can go on what lot. They have to know how long the build time is, what are the options, what are the,
Yeah.
they have to know everything.
That's what I thought would happen and then.
The point is, when I have an off day, I don't want you to call me as my sitter. I want my off day. I don't want to be there.
There was too many questions, I was so scared, but
Right.
everyone, and said, well, I was there during like the monsoon season apparently with the least amount of traffic you could ever imagine. So I watched a lot of HGTV, watched YouTube videos to like teach myself about it. I mean.
I had my sitter come and work with me, like,
Yeah.
a couple weekends, because weekends are the busiest traffic normally, before I would let her sit on her own.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
really
you might
enjoyed
want to
it.
ask, but what Chandra would tell us too, when she taught this class was, because she started out her career this way, not only did she know your product, she would know competitors' products, because then if that client, for whatever reason, didn't want to live with Cliff Farms, she would be like, oh, well, I don't really work for them, so guess what? Adams has a similar, or, whoever has a similar product, let's go see that. So
Right.
she was.
And that's the whole point of a
Yeah.
sitter, is to get buyers, but of course, like, now that I'll be with Breland, if the buyer comes in and they're in my model home and I don't have anything in my community that fits their need, we would want you to try to take them to another Breland
Sure,
community,
yeah.
because you met them in the Breland model home. That's kind of how it works. But if you've exhausted that then of course, take them to wherever,
You are still selling outside of the Breland community?
No, I was, with St. Martin, I could, but I did not. I didn't take the buyer, and because we had stuff at different price points, I could always find them a neighborhood in St. Martin that fit them, and we couldn't cross sell, so I couldn't, like, if Gina were in another neighborhood, I would just have to send them to Gina. I don't get any commission on it, so, but it just benefited the company, so. But I could still sell outside of, I didn't have time, I sold 62
Well, so here's a
houses.
question about, what about listings, like when you guys may come in to have, to want to purchase and they have
I
a
would give them to
listing?
my sitter.
Okay,
Yeah, and that's the benefit of being a sitter too,
So
is
there you
that,
go. That's a good
you
benefit.
get listings from the on-site agent.
that's a very good
So-
benefit.
So I've got a question now too. It's not about that part, but because I'm going to meet somebody now and we're just gonna just sit down and be talking about stuff. And I think they are thinking about going with new build instead of, but they're not from here. They just moved here. So, and I'm not as familiar with Madison as Huntsville. So should I just I've just been looking up different builder communities. And I thought to start with, we just look online and just see what the styles and things like that and their price ranges and then go out in person, you think, or?
Yeah, I mean, Madison is hard right now. And if they want Madison City, there are very few Madison City new construction neighborhoods. Because Madison City had a moratorium on building anything for about 2 years. They would not approve any new construction neighborhoods. So now that they have, the Crossings was released, which is what Gina was talking about earlier, but I don't even know how many they have left there. I know I sold 4 in December and I had 4 lined up in January to write, but then I quit. So
That's the problem, they want to do it more, so
yeah,
it's just like,
four at a time. And I don't know what Eastview's doing, but other than that, Pearson has something on Powell Road. I don't know what their price range is, but
350.
in Madison City, they're not gonna get that. I mean, they will not be in
No, it
Madison
won't
City
be
schools right
350.
now in 350. So,
is that what they're saying?
Was that?
I'm sorry, you said that was your buyer.
That's
There's no
what
way
my
Pearson's
buyers, yeah.
350.
No, that's their
possibly
budget.
Adams off of Dirt
Yeah,
out
that's
at Savannah, I think
That's
it's the name of the
290,
neighborhood.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
if
that
I'm
won't be
paying,
Madison City Schools.
if I'm paying 350, I'm gonna want a little more than an
Not for
Adams.
new construction.
but That sounds.
Because we have
Well, I
some
should
out
say
there.
that.
As far as my idea of just looking online before going out and just hitting the streets, is
Yeah.
that something, does that make sense?
So here's what I've been doing, and this is what's maybe challenging. So is it the MLS that's not letting you guys put them in the MLS until they're at slab, or is it something other? what
We
other-
cannot put a spec home in MLS till it's flat. No, you can do proposed construction.
Yeah, I did that.
Which is, I'm not a fan of, because then what happens is when you go to list that lot, it's gonna show up as a proposed construction, and it may have been a different floor plan earlier on, and it just gets really confusing.
It seems like no
in
one's doing that
So,
anyway, really.
MLS. Most people aren't,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because they don't have to, because they haven't been proposed.
Right,
So-
right. But it's, online is okay, but it's not always accurate. So, you gotta be careful what you see on there because whatever they sold today, it's probably not gonna be on the website for 3 or 4 more days. So it's not always accurate.
Oh,
So-
I was looking at the website for availability necessarily, but just style, look at the different places,
Right,
look
right.
around.
Here's what
And then I
I
thought we could call or go out, make an appointment or whatever. And
You
then
gonna look on like the builder's website?
That's what I was
or
thinking,
MLS?
to
Yeah.
see their
Just
pictures.
to
This
see
is
their
kind of labor
different
intensive, but I did
communities.
a map search and I put in anything that's been sold that was new, and you can put an age, the age of the home. I did new construction, under construction, or proposed construction sold in the past 6 months in my price point in my area, Madison City Schools. And then it'll come up with all the things that have sold, and then you just look at all the neighborhoods, just do a neighborhood sort, and then you can see all the neighborhoods and look at the date of when they sold. So at least that'll give you an idea of what
I didn't think about
neighborhoods.
that.
You might take Burgery Farms. I don't know what their
What is
price is.
Oh.
Good
What
old
Dublin
Burgery
Farms?
Burgery Farms.
What about,
Dublin, I actually live in Dublin Farms, but I don't think they have anything under 350 right now.
I was thinking more stuff came up in my MLS search in the Athens, East Limestone
Mhm.
Yeah,
area.
they build.
And this is a Toyota person. so they're
Everything's
right
going
there.
that way. Yeah, all the construction is going that way.
It's right there
Because
on the
Madison's
movie.
out of land, basically.
and there's some Madison City Schools, so. I mean, some of them are.
Well, East Limestone, yeah.
East
You have
Limestone
to
is
be-
in Athens, but a
Yeah,
lot of them.
there's
is
very
building.
few, like.
But Village of Upland Springs, you can find my listing, it's 430. Getting up a little bit.
Totally increased it by 70,
Come on, I can do it. It's only a couple dollars more.
Well, because the husband has been looking for stuff online and he just zaps into me every now and then, but for right now, they're in an apartment. So they're not even going anywhere anytime soon. And I keep telling them, I just want to say, why bother? Because it's not going to be there in 2 days, can we look at this? Can we look at that? I'm thinking, are you going to get out of this apartment? Lise,
Yeah,
right
no,
now? If you're not, then no,
They're running you to death for no reason. I would have to nip that in the bud.
But that's a good reason why their best bet
No,
is new
no.
construction though.
Yeah,
that's why
because they have time to
Yeah.
really
Have
get
you
inspired.
looked into Goodall Homes? I don't know their product or how good they
I will-
are.
Yeah, and Burger Farms, get all
That's what that's.
selling at Burger
there's-
Farms. I don't know what they have left.
So, okay, so I have a friend that lives in the Murphy Home subdivision off of Seegers, I believe. And right behind that neighborhood used to be a field farm that recently sold, and Goodall is putting like a huge development right there. So, and they're zoned for Madison City. Of course, they have to pass 2 school zones to get to their school.
Are you talking about Creekside?
I don't know the name of it, but my really good friend Amira lives off Dillon Road in the
I
Murphy
think she's
Homes.
talking about the thing is like Greenbrier Hills and then Cedars,
Oh,
right?
gotcha.
It's like a valley like this.
Yeah.
And I
then
thought it
turns
was
are like-
rent at first, but then I found out the rent's up higher now. Goodall's taken over that. Or maybe Pearson was supposed to be there.
Because if they could get into construction, it would work about good with the run out of his lease and whatever. He's
Yeah.
not opposed to paying towards the end, getting out of it, whatever, but he doesn't want to try to leave it now. and then have nowhere to
And
go.
for what I tell my clients in that, especially in that price point or even lower, is that you don't have to fight anybody for it. You don't have to
Yeah.
have multiple offers, you don't have to keep going over. It's a done deal. You know what you're paying.
But since they're coming from Atlanta, they don't know anything, so now I'm like tour guide too, starting to show different places, and I thought, what's the best way to show them different
It's
things?
really hard.
Because she
Yeah,
doesn't
it
seem
is
to want to
very
just drive
hard.
around on her own,
Mhm.
you know.
Does not want to.
Because the
Doesn't
signs
seem
are,
like it.
well, the signs are so confusing and you see a
I
sign
think
and
her English is
it's,
great.
they're not there
She
anymore.
can,
right.
yeah, Who are coming today.
Yeah.
So I've just been trying to do a lot of legwork and
That's
just
awesome,
sitting
guys.
a
Thank
lot
you
to
so
look at.
much.
you know.
Yeah, you are so
So at least
welcome.
whittle it down.
So your
lots
flip,
tonight.
your flip farms, what's your price point?
You could look online.
The sign says 390, but I'm not positive yet, because I think they're about to
Nice
have a
to see
price
you
increase.
again.
What about that?
So, it's like 1,700. They're gonna have townhouses too.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, yeah.
And you think that's gonna stay on, it's one on county schools right now, right?
They're gonna try to annex at some
I
point,
know, it's
but
crazy though.
yeah.
I could not believe, I don't know what the guy's name is, that is the superintendent now in Acres,
You're welcome.
for your stuff.
Not Jason.
But, when he said that they were selling, I was like, they don't even, how do they know what school zone it is? And he said,
Wait, someone told me another. It's like, how I think it's old phone.
this was a couple months ago, so. I mean, he was just talking about that they were building.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But I said, you don't even, do they even know what school zone it is? And they said, it must be Madison County though.
It is Madison County.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Sparkman and,
Monrovia Middle probably.
yes, I think so.
Like, it's the elementary.
Have you gone out to that Publix yet?
I go to Hot Works all the time,
Fancy.
so, yeah.
Anyway, I just,
Well, thank y'all.
Thank
I gotta go to the
you.
airport,
Great.
so.
thank you. Bye, guys.
You're welcome. Bye. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
I know I do have a question, but I'm gonna ask Gabrielle, because she did not say that there was a penalty on the contract, getting out of the contract.
There is 5%.
My client told me that today, I think it was, I was like, that doesn't make sense. The only thing you'd lose is your $1,000 earnest money.
I tell
So
everybody
that's
there's no way
very
out of it.
generous.
I just say that you just can't charge it. Because
Yeah,
she'll have to
and
sign
that is
it.
the best thing to do, because there really isn't. I mean, it's a legally binding.
That's what I told her. I said, this is
Yeah.
a contract.
I'm like, I'm not
But
trying to
she's gonna
scare you,
sell
but
her house.
it is like, it is
You need to be
impossible
sure.
to get out of this, yeah.
Yeah.
She lives in Athens now, so she's gonna
But-
sell her.
Hey, Gina,
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't
did
think.
you get a chance to talk to your seller?
Yeah, I was just gonna text you. I'll call you in one sec.
Okay, bye.
There is some builders that